Hi, this is Lana Bells and Angelique Gonzalez's Week 8 Learning Theories PowerPoint.
What is learning theory? Learning theory encompasses what teachers believe about how learning happens and how they see themselves in promoting student learning. Learning theory describes how students receive, process, and retain knowledge during learning. It is an application of natural learning that takes place starting at birth. It poses questions such as what we know about how very young children learn naturally, like how can we apply these strategies in a classroom environments in developmentally appropriate ways? How can we help students look at academics with the same curiosity that they apply in real-world self-motivating learning? And what teacher actions can sustain core learning behaviors so as to promote higher cognitive abilities in learners?
What are the fundamental principles of learning theory? Learning theories offer frameworks that help understand how information is used, how information is created, and how learning takes place. Learning theory includes the following fundamental principles, such as prior knowledge supporting new learning. Relevance makes learning meaningful. Examples of this include connections to the real world and authentic learning experiences. Learning is a social activity. This includes responsibility for self-learning. Learners construct their own understanding of new knowledge. Students are not empty vessels waiting to be filled. Learners organize knowledge using scaffolds that connect existing knowledge to new knowledge. And teachers' actions, behaviors, and attitudes can impact learning positively or negatively.
What is the difference between the behaviorist and constructivist approach? In many discussions of learning theory, a sort of division between two approaches is suggested, which include the behaviorist approach to learning and the constructivist approach. Behaviorism is centered around transmission of knowledge from the instructor to the student, passive student, and on instructor-centered approach. Whereas constructivism is focused on the construction of knowledge by the student, active student, and student-driven.
We chose the third grade science TEK AA to show the difference between a behaviorist lesson and a constructivist lesson. 8. Earth and space. The student knows there are recognizable patterns in the natural world and among objects in the sky. The student is expected to A. Observe, measure, record, and compare day-to-day weather changes in different locations at the same time that include air temperature, wind direction, and precipitation. For the behaviorist approach, we'd have the students read the chapter and go over the different weather conditions. For classwork, the teacher would have the students give 10 observations of the day's weather conditions. They would have them use examples straight from the chapter when observing. The responses must be neatly written on lined notebook paper. They would have to skip a line between their answers and do not write on the back of the page or out of the lines. For the assessment, the teacher only would look to see if the students have answered all 10 observations. For a constructivist approach, the teacher would have the children go over the chapter and go over the different weather conditions learned. For the classwork, they'd have them observe the weather conditions throughout the week using the weather report activity sheet. They would use also what they had learned about weather conditions, label throughout the week what the weather condition is like, then write about what you think the next day would be like. As an assessment, the student will write and draw a detailed response of the day's weather conditions. The teacher will then respond to students as they share to the class what they observed, measured, and recorded.
Why should teachers use their understanding about students' development and needs to inform their planning and instructional activities? With differentiation in the classroom, instructors can manage what students learn, how students learn, and how students are assessed. With this flexibility, differentiated instruction allows teachers to maximize individual growth and the course content. Differentiated instruction is student-centered.
How will you utilize the 5 E's to develop a constructivist lesson plan? Using the 5 E's, we have decided that creating a more student-run lesson plan can ensure a greater success rate. We would make sure students are engaged with a challenging situation This is where prior knowledge is activated and questions are provoked. We would have the students investigate the phenomenon, and this is where prior knowledge is challenged and ideas are created. We would have the students explain the phenomenon, and this is where the new knowledge is gained and applied. Then we would have the students apply their knowledge towards the new situation. This is where the knowledge is deepened and extended. And finally, we would have the students reflect on their knowledge and the learning process, and this is where we would assess them.